So Lawrence, what do you think about the principle of don't sweat the small stuff?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a great principle. I actually use that a lot in my career and my personal life as well, right? It's, there's a lot packed into that little statement, don't sweat the small stuff. I think the majority of people walk around carrying a monkey on their back. People get into this sense of negativity, and I get that. These things happen in the course of a day, in your life, right? With your partner, your wife, your husband, your children, your family and your friends, you're at work, you're in your business. All these things will happen to you. And most of them, especially if you're an entrepreneur in a business, and a lot of them are not great. Like, just a lot of them are not great. And some of them really hurt, right? And sometimes you have to figure out how you can carry on with the day, which can be very difficult. So there's a lot of things that come to mind when I say that, resilience, education, being wise, I also think is something that people underestimate these days, and that comes from reading from great authors, the successful entrepreneurs and their messages. But don't sweat the small stuff. That was a book by Lawrence Hanson, and he wrote a few books actually. That was one of the first ones I read of his, and I thought it was a pretty great book. And I actually gave it to my daughters to read, and forced them to read it. I paid them to read and educate themselves, right? I never paid the girls to clean their room, for example. Like, that's on them. You have to do that in the real world. You have to do that. No one should pay you for that. Those are the things that you just have to do as a human, right? Clean up after yourself. Right. But what I did is I paid them to listen to podcasts and read books. You know what I mean? And that was one of the first books I remember that I got them to read, because I think it's a powerful book, and it's a very simple story. There's a very simple storyline and narrative to that book, is that when something happens to you, how do you contain it in a way, which is compartmentalization? How do you contain it in a way where it doesn't affect the rest of your day, right? The other side to that I think about is people who worry about things that haven't happened yet, like in the future that may happen. And it could be, oh my God, I've got this thing this afternoon. And they carry this worry through the course of the day. And I think don't sweat the small stuff is about worry, concern. Like, that's where I think if I was to hover on that a little bit, that's what I think it means to me. So I think, how do you learn not to carry that monkey on your back? And if you have to carry it, how can you shorten the amount of time you have to carry it? I think sometimes it's impossible not to, because I think you've got to be very, very disciplined. You've got to be a particular type of person. You've got to be very unemotional, and very probably unempathetic to be able to not let things affect you, right? Like a true narcissist. But if you're not that person, and most people are not, everyone gets emotional about something. Someone says something to somebody that they didn't like, and their feelings get hurt, And it happens all the time. It happens in corporate enterprise all the time. It happens in business. Business is probably one of the worst, right? Because as a founder or a CEO, you have to navigate the business, get things done, but consider people's feelings. Man, that is so difficult. And we're working and operating in a world that's very hypersensitive right now, super sensitive. So now leaders have to relearn leadership and management, right? I think of the term micromanagement. I think, man, you have to be now. I think it's that critical. And then I have to think you have to be micromanagers with people in their personal lives as well as their professional lives, and you have to sort of do both. It's like you're a father of the company, and every little bit of ounce of trouble they're going through, or feeling, or worry they're feeling, you have to navigate. So the principle is, how can you navigate that personally? And if you are carrying worry, how do you stop it? If I was to say, how do you stop it? I'm gonna run through a couple of things that I do, right, to overcome that. Because I think if you can, it's a game changer in your life personally, and that probably pushes out to everything else that you do in terms of success. If you can't overcome this one strategy, this one emotion, it'll pull you down in every component of your life. It's crazy. Like, I see it in people all the time. I see them carrying stress with them. I see them full of anxiety. I see them hypersensitive, right? And quite weak. And I think it's because they set their mindset to worry. So, like, Carol Dweck speaks a lot about a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, right? there's sort of a difference between those two mindsets in terms of what we're talking about today, which is don't sweat the small stuff, like not carrying the pressure with you, right? So if you haven't read her book Mindset by Carol Dweck, I highly advise you should. We'll put the link into the notes so you can have a look at that. But so here's what I do. I count. Yeah, that's right, I can count. I can count past 10 too, but I count. So if something happens to me, one of the first things I do before I react to it is I count to 3. Very simple principle, right? That's just something I do for myself. I just figured out that works for me. So if there was something that was said, something that happened, my goal is not to react immediately, because when you react based on emotion, and normally when you react based on high levels of emotion, it's the wrong reaction. But when I breathe and count to 3, it instantly triggers me to not react at all. So that's one thing I do. So I just go 1, breathe, 2, breathe, 3, breathe. And I settle really, really quickly. Now that takes practice. I've been practicing that for many years. So, but you just have to find out what works for you. That's something that works for me. The other thing I do, which is really powerful, is I sleep on it. You know, if I do carry worry, like I never really stress, I never have anxiety. You know, I don't think I've ever suffered from depression. You know, I'm just sort of that guy. I'm engineered that way. And if that hurts your feelings, well, man, this is exactly what we're talking about. Because what I say shouldn't hurt anyone's feelings. It's not about what I say, it's about what you say to yourself after I stop talking. That's the problem. And that's what this narrative is about, right? But I sleep on things. So if something happens to me in a work day, and if you're a founder or a CEO, you get hit, I don't know, 10, 20 times a day. And none of it's good. It's all bad. You're employed to deal with all the shit. All the problems, all the challenges, you know, all the hurdles to jump over, you have to do all of that. So you have to find tools and resources which are probably more psychological and personal. Some of them could be physical as well. I'll get to that. That's my third thing. But, you know, I sleep on it. I go home and I sleep on it. I always say to myself, I say this, everything will be better tomorrow. And then I put it in a box and I put it over here and I carry on with my day. So I've got myself a mental application of tools that I use that just work for me. So you need to build an arsenal of psychological tools that you can use in a war against stress, worry, and anxiety. Like psychologists teach this, right? And psychiatrists teach this about putting things into compartments. Because worrying about it doesn't help you. Now we all know that's super logical, right? Oh, worrying about that. Yeah, why am I doing that? It's just making me feel uncomfortable. I'm not myself. I feel stressed out. But what if it's simply just a decision? And it is. Right, so pick it up, I put it in a box, I close the box, I put it over here and I carry on with my day and I say to myself, I'll deal with that tomorrow. If it's instant, I count to 3 and I breathe. And then the other thing I say, everything will be better tomorrow. Let me sleep on it. Lawrence, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? We're going to make a decision. Guys, no one's going to die. Let me sleep on it and let's talk tomorrow. And it really just slows everything down, right? Like, you know, and that's not normally a good way to do it. The third thing I do, which is a power trip for me, is if I'm worried or I'm stressed, it's normally worry for me. Like I said, it's not normally stress. I go to the gym. Like, just go to the gym, man.
You just can't be worried at the gym.
Man, you cannot be stressed, worried, or full of anxiety when you're working out. It is impossible to feel that way.
Yeah.
Because we're a biological entity, right? In the first instance, you know, the brain and the psychology doesn't exist without the body. Now, if you can get harmony between those two, that's great. Not many people can. People use meditation to be able to do that. I think physical exercise works better for me than meditation, and I've tried both over many years, and both of them are great. But if I've had a rough day, going to the gym, man, the rough day just fades away. It just absolutely fades away. So that's another superpower. So if you're not doing that, I highly recommend that you do. Like I went to the gym this morning, you know, I just went because I enjoy it, right? But when you do that, you also feel stronger, right? Come on, man. Like, you know, we just do, you feel stronger. You go and have a workout, man, for an hour. And when you walk out of that gym, you feel 10 feet fucking tall. How good's that? For the psychology, for the day, for your productivity. So So that's also just a resource and a tool that you can use to not sweat the small stuff, not sweat the worry, the stress, the anxiety of the day-to-day lives that we have to live as humans, and we all have to. I tell the story about a 17-year-old girl in Africa who has to walk 7 miles to get water for her family every day, right? This girl was interviewed and she's just the happiest, kindest, nicest young girl that you could ever meet. And then, sometimes I see people who are driving around in nice cars, earning a decent amount of money, buying their lattes, eating their pastries in the morning, bitching and whinging and complaining that times are tough. Sometimes a little bit of gratitude is also another good resource. And the last thing I do is I have these sayings and these quotes and these statements, right? The obstacle is the way. So what stands in the way becomes the way. So that's something that I live by. I just live by that. So when I get hit, right, I look at that problem and go, how can this serve me? So how can I turn a tough time into an opportunity? How can I turn this issue into an opportunity, leverage it, and be better off than I was before that occurred? I just think like that all the time. The part B to that mindset and psychology for me, in my opinion, is I choose to believe in that what serves me, whether it's true or not. Because I don't care whether it's true or not. I just don't give a shit. But if it serves me and gets me to that next thing, and it decreases stress and anxiety and worry for me, why wouldn't you do it, right? Because it's not hurting anybody, it's not affecting anybody. So I think that's pretty important. So, that said, so there's half a dozen tools there that I use to reduce stress, anxiety, and worry. And there's one thing I know about the current world right now and our current climate that's hypersensitive. They're full of stress, anxiety, and worry. And I see it in everybody, and I think, wow, we've got to really think about, like, to quote Scott Galloway, the pandemic now in America is, young men from the ages of 19 through to 26 are so susceptible to committing suicide because of all these changes in society and the influence of social media. Like, what do we do about that? It's a lack of control, and it's a lack of resources to control emotional situations, right? They're not socializing as much as they used to. They're working from home by themselves. Young entrepreneurs are working from their bedrooms. They're not interacting. We're not interacting the way that we used to. The whole economy around social corporate enterprise has changed, right? So we have to navigate that and figure that out. But I think what's happened is the world, with a new generation coming into play as well. Look, I get that. And the influence of social media, which I think has been pretty detrimental on some of the negative impacts around the world. We just have to navigate that. We have to get over it, and we have to go, okay, well, this is just what it is. What are we going to fucking do about it? And I'm talking about ourselves personally. I'm not talking about, what government should do about it. They have to navigate that and figure that out. They move so slow that the market's going to change even before they get to deliver a solution through bills and legislation. But what do we do about it personally? So if you're watching this and you're suffering from stress, anxiety, and worry, what are you going to do about it? Like, you just have to do something about it, because if you don't, it continues to propagate and continues to grow, and it's challenging for people to get ahead in life, right? For themselves, their families, their friends, or whatever. So it's a very long answer to a single question, but I'm pretty passionate about that. I think it's really important. I think people should think about it more. People should write about it more, talk about it more, because I think it's what we need right now.
And can you share a time when ignoring small problems have helped you focus on bigger goals?
Well, I never focus on small problems, ever, really. And what I mean by that is, well, look, I'm a business guy, right? And in business, there's so many small problems. As a leader, if you're a CEO or a founder, you would build a team around you over a period of time, and those people would normally deal with all the small problems in your business. So you don't have to, because that's simply a distraction, really. It is simply a distraction. If you're focused on the small things, your business won't grow. Like, founders should really be focused on vision. CEOs should be operational and responsible for the P&L. And then managers should be responsible for all the micro elements in a business. Like, that's just how it works. Now, I understand that if you're in startup, you don't have the staff and the money to hire all those people. So the CEO and the founder has to be the IT guy, the Facebook guy, you know, the ads guy, the operations manager, and all that, right? And the HR person all at the same time, but you have to put yourself in a position where on paper, you know when you can get out of that. You have to get to a point to get out of that. And if you're 3 years in business and you're still there, that won't end well. Like, you have to figure out how to get out of that. So businesses, you have to bring in layers. And I think, I think entrepreneurs need to run towards that as fast as possible. Even if you go into deficit sometimes, I think it's worth it, right? Because if I could have found a great CEO in year 3 or year 4 for one of my companies, for example, I would have been able to focus on vision and really focusing on some of the real visionary, 10-year goal stuff that I'm focused on now, which is super, super interesting and creative. But, all that small stuff, all that micro stuff, as I said before, look, it's there, we get it, you have to deal with it, find resources to get over it, but delegate it out.
How can you decide what small stuff is and what needs your attention?
Yeah, that's a super good question. People should think about that more. Like, what is it, right? So identifying the small things from the big things. I'll speak primarily from a corporate sort of business, space. Is that if your goal is to get to 1 million X, right? Like, that's all that matters. And all the other stuff will figure itself out. So you should be focused on generating revenue, because revenue is the oxygen your business needs to grow and survive. And if you're not focused on that, your business will die. So all the things that you probably care about that are not revenue generating will just go away. You won't have them anymore because the business will close. So you really got to be optimal and focused on the right thing. I think there's probably a third, where a third is people and talent, a third is revenue, and a third is probably the other stuff that's operational that you have to do, like the product market fit, advertising, marketing, that sort of stuff, right? Everything underneath that, outside of those categories, I'm not interested. What sort of printer should we get? Well, I don't give a fuck. Get any sort of printer you want. As long as it doesn't breach our operational expenditure, I don't care. What sort of office should we get? I don't care, right? I'm that sort of guy where get it to 75%. Like, I like Steve Jobs' theory, right? Get it to 75% and launch that goddamn product. Because if you want to get it to 100%, it's just going to take you so long to get there. Like, it's just too micro for me. Like, I don't care if we launch an ad and there's a spelling mistake in it. Here's the deal. If you're going to launch a product, let's say t-shirts, right? I don't know why I always use t-shirts as an example. It's weird. I'm wearing a t-shirt, but so let's say t-shirts, right? You want to start a t-shirt. I just think all these young kids want to do drop shipping. So that's why I probably always use t-shirts as an example. So you want to get to $10,000 a week, right? The only way to do that, once you've got all your suppliers in play, right, is to advertise. The only gateway to generate revenue in that business model is to advertise. Building the website doesn't make you money, correct? Building the shopping cart doesn't make you money, correct? Yeah. Do you have to have it? Yeah, you do, but it doesn't make you money, right? What makes you money is the product and the advertising to get to the customer who has the money to buy the product, right? Yeah, you have the logistics. Now, let's just say I would rather get the ad up first and have a broken shopping cart than get the shopping cart fixed and then put the ads up. And most people won't do that. They won't, because they want it to be perfect. I always talk about that guy who sets up the cafe, and he took over the lease from this other guy. This is a true story, by the way. He took over the lease from another guy. I was speaking to this guy. I know this guy, he's a good guy. He's a bit stupid though, because here's what he did. There was nothing wrong with the cafe. The guy before him went out of business because he didn't know how to run it, right? Didn't know how to recruit staff, didn't know how to train staff. But the cafe was located and situated in a great place, right? There was lots of street traffic. So this guy moves in, right? Takes over the lease. The lease is pretty expensive. It was about $150,000 a year for the lease of this cafe. And his decision was to go into the cafe, close the doors for 60 days and renovate. But that's what people do, right? So he decided on a $150,000 lease, right, per annum, to close the door for 2 months while he renovates and spent $200,000 to renovate it and had it made. So it probably cost him, say, $250,000. Right, he took over this business, spent $250,000 on it and hadn't sold anything. Hadn't made $1. Now that's what people do. It's very neurotic, I get that. And I know you want it to be perfect, I get that. But people, just launch it and they will come and figure the rest out later. Like, I don't mind having a few pissed off customers at the start because they're gonna tell me what I need to fix. And I'll go and fix it and then I'll give them a free one because they're helping me get to product market fit, right? So if I was that guy, I said to him, what you should have done is change nothing and went straight in and started running the business. Because even though the other guy's not making any money, you're still gonna make money, right? Because you're the same customers are gonna come in. So when you're making money, then you can just get to work, right? And you work on the fly and you iterate and you iterate and you iterate. So he was an idiot, and I'm pretty sure he went out of business. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I don't think he's there anymore. Yeah, so because he just went too much into debt. He borrowed that money against his house too, so that's a lot of pressure on family, dude. It's like, so yeah, so my thing is launch it and figure the rest out later. Commit to it and figure the rest out later. Send it and figure the rest out later. Like, that would be my advice, man, always, no matter what. Now, the bigger you get, you know, there's some pros and cons to some of those principles, you know, and you might need to curve the edges a little bit, but you know, that would be my take.
How can this mindset help you with work-life balance?
Yeah, like I said before, it's weird, man. I think over the years, I think as you get older, you really start to understand this more. I think for the younger generation, it's a little bit more difficult because I think you need a little bit of experience and you need to experience hard times, right? Strong men create good times creates weak people. Weak people create hard times create strong people create good times, and that circle sort of goes around, right? So I think if you want to create strength, a strong environment for yourself, your family, your business, it's really just about psychology. It's about mindset, man. Like, it's just about mindset. Like, you have to find a narrative that you say to yourself. You have to find tools and resources that you can leverage and use on a daily basis, and personal strategies. I think it's all personal. I think it's all here, right? It's just this, man. There is nothing else that you can do. Like, I can't control you. I can't control the market. I can't control the people around me. I can't. You know, I can't control what happens to my daughters when they're not sitting next to me, or my family, right? You just can't do that. And your business could get hit from the side, man, and you don't even see it coming. So, you know, all I can do is control this. I can control how I react to things in the market, how I react to things emotionally. So I think it's all about controlling your emotions. But the first thing you have to do is come to the reality of who you are, who your character is, and how you process information. And I think that's probably the most important thing any human can do. Because once you master that, we'll put it this way, you don't need to master it. But if you could get to understand yourself to at least 50 to 75%, that's a really good journey to take, because everything else starts to get a little bit easier once you figure yourself out. We should do that in the first instance. And, you know, I said, focus on yourself and focus on your business second. Focus on yourself and focus on your family second. Like, I think that's critical. Because if you're a shitty you, right, and you can't control anything, nothing else is going to work. Your business will fail. Your marriage will break. Your wife will leave you. Your kids will hate you. Because if you can't control this, man, nothing is going to work. So I think people need to do that and figure it out. Use those simple principles I spoke about, you know, come up with your personal strategies, go to the gym, find those little trigger points where the obstacle is the way, right? Those sort of belief systems, and maybe that's what it is, right? It's about belief systems, can cure all ills, man, as they say in the olden days. So thanks for listening. We've been talking about this book, which is a book that I read many, many, many years ago. It's a great book. It's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. We'll put the link in the notes so you can go check it out. So look, thanks for watching. Really do appreciate it. If you like what we're doing, we'd love for you to be part of our community. Please click subscribe and join the conversation. Send me a DM if there's anything that you want us to talk about. We've got some great interviews in 2025. So stay tuned for that. We've also got an upgrade of the website and some new courses on their way in 2025 as well. So again, thank you. Appreciate your time. Respect. See you next time.